What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Undrunken Podcast. I'm your host, Courtney, and I want you to join me as I talk with real people and have super gritty conversations about their journeys to becoming undrunken. So let's go. Dump the drink because it's time to get this party started. What's up, y'all? It's Courtney, and I had a guest reach out to me the other day. They were hesitant to listen to their own episode, and a lot of my guests have shared that. I kind of feel the same way. Like, we have this in common, right? And it's really awkward to listen to your own voice. And I shared with him how I overcome this personally is I pretend I'm listening to someone else. And it's kind of easy because my voice sounds different when it's recorded and I'm listening to it than it does in my head anyway. And it's really an incredibly vulnerable thing for me because I grew up with 5 older brothers, and at least a few of them regularly teased me about how annoying my voice was. And I think that on some level, that was a big part of why it took me a couple months to even launch the podcast. I mean, it was just vulnerable on so many levels. I wasn't just putting myself out there with this crazy idea of interviews and celebrating the lives of people that don't drink. It was also putting myself out there personally and then just listening to my own fucking voice. Oh my gosh. So, this concept around vulnerability is extra present. And I'm reading this book, Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. And on page 41, she says, "We love seeing raw truth and openness in other people, but we're afraid to let them see it in us. We're afraid that our truth isn't enough, that we have to offer isn't enough, without all the bells and whistles, without editing and impressing." This literally brought me to tears. She goes on further down the page and says, "Here's the crux of the struggle. I want to experience your vulnerability, but I don't want to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is courage in you and inadequacy in me. I'm drawn to your vulnerability, but repelled by mine." This really kind of hit home for me, y'all. But if we look at the definition of vulnerable, which she does a couple pages earlier, it means capable of being wounded, not weak or wounded. And I think, and she talks about those, there's such a big misconception we have about vulnerability, weakness. Vulnerability versus weakness. Weakness is the inability to withstand attack or wounding, whereas vulnerability means open to attack or damage. So, and she explains this just from a linguistic perspective. She says it's clear these are very different concepts, and in fact, one could argue weakness often stems from a lack of vulnerability. When we don't acknowledge how and where we're tender, we're more at risk of being hurt. Like, whoa! Brene believes honest conversations about vulnerability and shame can change the world. And after reading a couple of her books, I think she's right. I mean, I really do think that a lot of my guests are doing this. And I really want to believe that we can change the world by sharing these stories. Brene goes on, she says, vulnerability is life's great dare, and it's courage beyond measure. It's daring greatly. Like, wow. I don't know about you, but growing up, like, this whole concept was foreign. I was encouraged and almost demanded by to keep my private life private, not be vulnerable or authentic with like coworkers or even friends on some level. So I really, all of this is to say there's a lot of vulnerability here at Undrunken, and I personally feel a lot of vulnerability present, and I love what she says. This is life's great dare. Be vulnerable, lean in. And this week's guest, she did that in a way that no other guest has before. So it's a 2-part episode. So I interviewed her and we had a great conversation. Her name's Jen. You're going to hear her in just a few minutes. And I really enjoyed our conversation. We laughed. She's very thoughtful. It felt very organic and authentic. And almost immediately after, she reached out to me. And I'm not going to spoil it, but she wanted to come back. And I she did. And so check out this episode and then be sure to check in and tune in, sorry, next week to hear part 2 and why it was so important and for her to come back. Talk about vulnerability and authenticity. You're going to love it. So, Jen, thank you for joining. And I think it's really cool. You are a Durandy.
Yes.
And so you heard Durandy's episode.
Yes.
And that's what led you to me. So tell me about what about it caught your attention?
Well, I, like Andy, have never been drunk. And what caught my attention was, well, first of all, that, because I don't know that I've ever met anyone else who's never been drunk. And I can't wait to tell him that when I see him this weekend, to go through the archive. I'm excited about that. But also, one thing that he said that really, really resonated with me was that he's just wired that way, like not to be interested in alcohol. And I feel like that's me too. I've never had really an interest to be drunk. That's not saying I've never had a drink, because I have, but it just doesn't interest me. So yeah, people don't really understand it in my experience. I get a lot of comments and things, but we can get into that. But yeah, that was the thing that resonated with me the most, was that he said he's just wired that way. That explains it very well for me too.
I love that grabbed you. You said people don't really understand it. Do you get a lot of pressure from people?
Not anymore as much as I did when I was younger.
Yeah.
Because I'm 50. And when I was 21, 22, probably through 30, and especially when I was younger, and I liked to dance. So my friends and I would go out to clubs and stuff, and guys would try to buy me drinks, and I would just say, no, thank you. And they just they didn't understand it. And it was funny, because I would just say, well, I don't want to, I don't like it, whatever. And people didn't believe me. Oh, that's weird. You're a prude, you're strange, or whatever. But one time, as a joke, I said, not even as a joke. Okay. I don't want to put the wrong emphasis on this. I said that I'm in recovery. And one of my friends said, from what? She thought it was funny. And then the person that was trying to buy me a drink totally believed it. Like, he left me alone after that point. And I never really did it again. But years later, I went back to school in my 30s, and I was in a psychology class, and I was relating that story when we were talking about addiction or something, I think. And my teacher, my professor, she stopped me and she said, that's not cool. Because if you aren't interested in it, it never interested you, you've never struggled with it, then you're making light of someone who's going through that struggle. And it's really difficult for them. They have to make that decision every day, and you don't. And that really hit me. And I really, really thought about it, and I never made light of it again, because it's totally true. I have a friend who struggles a little bit and has said to me before, you're so strong. I really admire your strength. And I've said to that friend on numerous occasions, I don't deserve that compliment, because if you're going to compliment me for maybe just following my own instincts or my own journey, or standing up against peer pressure or something like that, that's great. But don't give me that compliment for staying away from alcohol, because I didn't earn it.
They just never liked it.
No. I tried it a few times. I can't even tell you. I know I was over 21, but I can't even tell you when, because I had friends that were younger. So I didn't even go to clubs and things right away because they couldn't come with me. Um, but I, I just didn't really I didn't really like the way it made me feel. Wine gives me a headache.
Mm.
The alcohol, I just didn't really um, like it very much. And um, one person, one time, tried to get me drunk without my knowing. And I think the closest I've ever been to even, I guess, buzz, I just started feeling this really weird sensation where my brain was trying to communicate with my mouth, and I didn't feel like they were quite lining up, and I didn't like it, so I stopped. And then later I found out that someone had been like topping off my wine. Um,
Mm.
so, and it was somebody that knows me well enough to not do that. So that was a whole other thing.
One thing Andy said in this episode that stuck out to me was people saying to him, "I just want to see you drunk one time."
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, that's why this person who was very close to me actually said it would be really funny if we did this at her wedding.
Mm. Seriously? Oh man,
Yeah.
them fighting words right
Yeah.
there.
Well, and actually didn't tell me, but did it behind my back and kept filling up my wine at my wedding. And I didn't know. I was socializing, whatever, but I noticed it wasn't, the glass wasn't going down. I started feeling this weird, like I described before, feeling, and I put it aside. And later my husband told me, yeah, such and such said that they thought it would be funny, and I didn't know what to do because we had only been together like a year and a half when we got married. And he said I didn't know what to do, so I didn't tell you right away. um, but I didn't do it because I didn't like it. I didn't like the way I was feeling. And
You noticed it immediately, it sounds
I
like.
yeah, pretty immediately. I mean, I've had maybe a glass of things before. I would have a glass of wine like at a dinner or something like that, and it just would give me a headache after a while, and I didn't really like it. So this was at the wedding where we felt like we had to have something because, again, social convention.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just kind of sipping on it, and I started feeling like, okay, this is feeling weird. I did notice it fairly quickly, and I didn't like that feeling. So before it got any further, I just stopped. It's it's my choice not to
Yeah.
to do that to myself. I think maybe some people like the way it makes them feel. I don't. So
Yeah.
yeah, but there were a lot of times when I was at like dancing, or people I didn't know would say, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna buy you a drink, or I'm gonna get you drunk." Well, no, you're not. You're really not. I don't
Does
want.
your husband drink?
Yeah, a little bit. We don't have it at home. He's mostly social, like when we
Yeah.
go out.
What
But
do you drink?
pardon?
What do you
What
drink
do I
when you go
drink?
out?
Iced tea.
Yeah.
Iced tea, water. That's pretty much it. Coffee. I don't really drink I don't drink soda. I haven't, well, I used to, but I haven't had it for probably a year and a half. Um, but I mean, I can't even tell you the last time I had one of those social glasses of wine. I was thinking about it because I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, and I was trying to think when was the last time. And I think someone told me, like right after my son was born, oh, like beer will help with breast milk production. So I think I had like a little bit of beer, and it didn't do anything for me, but nothing did. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, so, and I think really that was the last time, because I was nursing him, and you have to be on a schedule of, you can't do it when you're going to feed them and all that. So I just didn't, and I think I just haven't had anything since. And he's 14, so a long time ago.
I think when your friend is saying that they admire how strong you are, I think that's them like if having that disinterest is something probably envious for people that struggle.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Do
And
a
that
lot of
person's
people
not
in
there yet.
their what?
He's not there yet. That person is not there yet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Is In your social circles, is it a thing anymore? Do you have a lot of friends that drink or don't drink, or do
My
you even notice?
my two closest friends, one not by choice and one, well, both not by choice, but one is more like me and another one has other reasons that they don't. But um not, I mean, it's not to the point of excess. It
Yeah.
might be like if it's a glass of or two glasses of wine or beer or whatever, I don't it doesn't affect the, the
Yeah.
evening. I've yeah, I don't that yeah,
There's
that's
not excessive drinkers that
no,
you're hanging out with.
no,
Yeah.
not that I hang out with. There, if I were to go to more functions for my business, I would probably see it more. But I'm usually home taking care of my son. So my husband does all the traveling for the business, and it's very prevalent in our industry. So
Yeah.
especially
So
he's on the sales side. So
I was gonna say there's a lot of it in different sects of business, right? So like salespeople,
mhm.
lawyers,
Yes, insurance,
doctors. Yep.
insurance in our case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, you said you've listened to quite a few episodes. After Andy's episode, of
Yeah.
course. What's your favorite episodes that you've heard so far?
Oh gosh. I listened to Stacy the other day. And I liked hers because it was very different from the others
Yeah.
that you've had. And
She's a lot like you and Andy, just
yeah, but
zero
she has
interest.
somebody in her immediate family, whereas I don't have that. So that she got to see a lot of that right up front. And I don't have that experience. I don't share that with her. Um, but you interviewed, oh gosh, it was from your conference that you went to. Oh, I'm trying to remember her name now. I just listened to it the other day.
Allie?
Gentry?
Gentry?
Yes.
Hmm.
Hers, I really liked her positivity and she was always her excitement. She was always excited. Yeah, that was a good
Yeah.
one. Um, I mean, they're all good in their different ways. They all, I've kind of learned from all of them. Um, and they all have some things that are really similar and then some things that are different.
Yeah. I really feel like every conversation is a gift that I get to unwrap and discover. So yeah. Um, so neither you or your husband are big drinkers. Do you talk to your kids about it?
We have one son, and he's very much like when I was younger, I was what my father always called me, a rule follower, and he's very much like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think if he saw it in the house, I mean, my husband likes to cook, so he's got like cooking wine, stuff like that. But I think anything more than that, and he would just want it poured out. He's very black and white. But that's just that's just him. So, but we do talk to him about it because you never know what. He's not easily influenced by anybody. He just isn't. He's very much himself, and that's a lot like how I was. I didn't. It was around me, like in high school, peripherally, I guess. But my friends that I hung out with, well, one friend, she would go out with a different group of people and do things.
Mhm.
And then I would hear about it from other people. But it didn't really touch my immediate group. So
Yeah. What would you say to other non-drinkers, like just born non-drinkers, that maybe would get them feeling that same connection?
do you mean like
I've
what
had a couple of friends that, like you and Andy,
yeah,
just not interested,
yeah.
and they think that they're boring.
Oh, I get that all the time. I used to get that all the time. I used to get it boring. Yeah. And I can see that. I totally see that.
I mean, I know we just met, but Andy is one of the least boring
Yes,
people I
absolutely.
have ever met in my entire
The
life.
energy, he's got that energy that just his energy when you meet him, that you would never think he was boring. He's so energetic and empathetic, and yeah, I definitely not. And it's so hard because I don't, that's just not what I find fun. So I feel like you kind of have to find your people and your own fun. And that's not easy to do. When I was growing up, it definitely wasn't easy to do. But now, social media and things, I guess you can make connections a little bit easier. I mean, for me, I've always just been, there's been times when I've been sad and depressed like everybody else, but I'm just really, I think, really grounded in who I am. And even though, people would say to me, oh, you're boring or you're a prude or whatever, like that might make me feel bad, but it never made me want to change.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I never doubted the path I was on or how I felt about that subject, or not drinking. I've never done any drugs or anything like that. That's just who I am, how I'm wired. So I would just tell people, just they have to believe in themselves and who they are as people. And that's hard. I mean, it's easy to say.
Yeah.
Do I take my own advice?
Mhm.
I hope so. It was hard. I mean, there was times when I was definitely felt left out, right,
Mm.
from the
Yeah.
group, because they didn't. It made other people uncomfortable that I didn't drink.
Why do you think that is?
I That's a good question. I mean, there are some people in that I know that that's the only way they know how to connect with other people. And so when you don't do that, it's a little too real for them.
Mm. Yeah.
And I can only speak from my experience, but the groups when I was in high school that I saw, they were in a large group, and that's what they did together. And so I remember thinking when I was probably 14, 15, oh, this group looks like they have so much fun. I really want to be a part of them. And I would go over to their circle in the morning, and they're all standing there and they look so like they're having so much fun, but they're not talking to each other. So, I think it connects people on one level, but for me, I didn't connect that way with them.
Yeah. It like they can only connect when their inhibitions are
Yeah.
lowered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being around you mentioned you do have a friend who had a different relationship with alcohol. Being
Yes.
around that, what what watching that, what is your favorite thing about being undrunken?
I don't have, I feel sad and frustrated for that friend, because when they drink to excess, they immediately regret the things they did or said the next day. They they hate themselves, and that makes me sad. So it makes me, I'm glad that I don't do that, because I have enough things to be frustrated about and regret. I kind of have a mouth that goes faster than my brain sometimes. So, I can't imagine what I would say if I was not in control of that to the extent that I can control it.
Do you ever write stuff and skip letters because your brain's going so fast your hand can't keep up?
Um, I don't, I kind of skip the ends of the letters sometimes. The end, like if I'm writing, yeah, sometimes. Yeah. I used to journal a lot when I was younger, and I would have a hard time kind of slowing myself down. Yeah.
Yeah. What is one lesson alcohol has taught you, even not being interested in it?
A good question. I guess that trying to think, because there could be something from my perspective, like even though I haven't been interested in it, I still learn. I think it took me a long time to learn that it's okay to be who I am, and not, but it's also okay if I want to have a drink or something like that. For me, if I wanted to have one, I know it wouldn't but I would only, it wouldn't affect me to the point where I would do anything because I don't let it get that far. But I guess it sort of taught me that, I'm just trying to think of how to say this. It helped me see who was comfortable with me just being me, I guess.
Mm, yeah. Social circles. I
Yes.
mean, we've talked about society and the normalization of alcohol
Yes.
is so prevalent in every aspect. I mean, driving down the road, you see signs, watching TV, commercials, going to events. It's everywhere. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. There's a definite. I I think one of my big goals with Undrunken is to share that message. Like, you don't have to drink to have fun, and
Yes.
we're not boring.
We're not friends. No.
Like,
I love concerts.
yeah,
And I hear you talk about concerts a lot. You ask everybody, what do you do at a concert if you're not drinking? Well, me, I am a huge music fan. I'm going because I'm in that first 5 rows. I'm watching the band. I'm watching them play their instruments. I'm listening to them sing. I am right up front enjoying that experience live. That for me is, I just love that feeling, and I just get really caught up in the music. It's a really visceral experience for me. Not just Duran Duran, lots of bands.
yeah.
Um, but there was, when I went to the last Duran Duran show in May, I was in the front row, and there was a guy, probably 3 or 4 people down from me, who got really drunk.
Mhm.
And before Duran Duran came on, he was yelling at everybody, "This is the way you need to act at a concert. This is the way you need to behave." And I just kind of ignored him because whatever. But when the band came on, he was yelling at the singer, like,
What?
yeah, and he's just yelling these comments and we're in the front, right? So he's trying to get his attention and yelling all these comments to him. And I don't even remember what he said, but I saw him look down a couple times and just, you know, you're interrupting the band. They're there to perform for you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that to me was really disruptive, but that's one thing I love to do, and my friends like to go because I like to dance, and they like to go with me. We like to enjoy it together. We do
Right.
crazy things, so it's not boring.
No,
You can enjoy a lot of things, and I've heard some people say that you can enjoy them more because you're fully present.
I would say so. I really don't enjoy those super sloppy drunk people, though, and
No,
I I I struggle to have patience, and I remind myself that I was probably that person at a concert or 10. Um, but it really, when it starts to affect everyone else's experience, rein it in,
yeah,
right? Like the
yeah,
last concert I went to, we had beer spilled on us.
oh,
Our group was like the whole row,
right,
and this one guy, he was kneeing people in the head,
oh,
spilling beer. Like, I finally was like, I just can't. Like, this is just ruining everybody's experience. So I got security, and then they came and talked to him, and they ended up letting him stay. And then he was just talking smack the whole rest of the time. And I was like, and he almost got in a fight with my brother. Like, I'm just like, dude, like, chill out. There's an amazing band on the stage.
yes,
We're all here for the same reason. Yeah, yeah. And I do think that's one thing you and I have in common for sure, is going to concerts and really enjoying them without alcohol. I think so many people, that's something that they do, that alcohol is so associated with it. Yeah, for sure. I love not having to worry about getting an Uber. I love that I'm going to remember. I can record the band if I want to, and I'm not recording
yep.
my feet. Oh,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. Uh,
They're so expensive too, the tickets these days. Why would you wanna go and not remember? I
I
can't.
know. Yeah. That's exactly. Like, and besides, if you're gonna drink there, you got to bring a couple $100
Yeah.
because each drink is like $20. And
Yeah.
if there's two of you and you have a few drinks, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Is there anything I haven't asked you or we haven't talked about that you would like to talk about or have me ask?
Hmm. I'm trying to think of anything that I would say that I don't want to bring in other, because I have experience with like addiction and stuff in my like extended family, but I don't really want to talk about other people's stories. But I do think now seeing that, because that didn't come along till later in my life, that I feel I have a lot more empathy for it than I did when I was younger. When I was younger, I think I felt like that's bad. You shouldn't do that. That's bad.
Yeah.
But I think as I've gotten older and sort of seen different people's paths and journeys and how they struggle, especially the one friend, and I don't think that person. I mean, that person is not in treatment or anything like that, but um, that they've just said that they feel that they wish they could do what I do. Um, and so for a while, for a long time, it was hard for me to understand, well, why can't you?
Mm,
Um, and when I was a lot younger, probably till almost 30, I just saw people through my perspective, through my eyes. And so I think as I've gotten older, I've learned that everyone is on a different path. And that's why I like listening to the different episodes of your podcast, because you have a lot of different perspectives that you share. So I think I've become a lot more empathetic to it. Um, it's not easy for everybody, and for me, like I said, it's just the way I was from the beginning, from as long as I can remember. So
thank you. You've listened. You know I love to do quick fire.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So, and I gotta say, like, I really love doing this with people who were just, I call them born undrunken,
mhm.
right? Um, so how has being undrunken affected work?
It's kept me out of certain social circles, which is good and bad, because I got on a path to management pretty young. So it, I felt a little bit better about not being involved, so I could still have that authority, um, and that respect. But it's also bad because it sort of separates you from people that you have to work with every day. They went out, you didn't go. Um, but yeah, I've been successful as far as work goes. And then this is not quick fire.
That's okay. I love
um,
squirrels.
with the industry that I'm in now, I still get a little side eye, and why don't you drink when I do attend the functions with my husband? But
Yeah.
especially being that a lot of our underwriters are based in England, and it's very much a part of their culture. Um, so I think he pretty much tells everybody, like from the beginning, she doesn't drink, so they know. But yeah,
How has being undrunken affected money?
I'm gonna kind of call us out here. When we have to spend it on alcohol, sometimes there's a little bit of a conflict, because I'm like if we had, like, not at the a little bit at the wedding, but we recently had a, a celebration, and I didn't feel like we should offer it because it was a daytime celebration, and I didn't really feel it was necessary. And again, it's so much part of social convention that my husband did not agree. So we kind of came to a compromise where that was concerned. Um, so it affects money in that, like, I didn't want to spend that extra, however many, $100 to
Right.
include it. But other than that, we don't really let it. We own our own business, and we don't really we don't do a lot of entertaining that way with the business. So when we have to entertain clients or other colleagues, we don't really go overboard or anything like that. So
So, how has being undrunken affected love life?
When I was dating, it weeded him out real quick.
Right?
Yeah. I've been married for 20 years, so obviously it doesn't bother him too much.
How has being undrunken affected family?
Mostly my really close family is understands it, and they're just like social anyway, just social drinkers, but it doesn't really affect it too much. There's a little bit, but in only, I don't want to get too specific, but there's some some not quite immediate family members that don't understand it. But for the most part, I mean, like I've been around for a long time, so they know
Yeah.
pretty much now. So
How has being a non-drinker affected spirituality?
I'm very grounded. I'm very in touch and in tune with my body, and I don't think in myself. Like, just I don't know that if I was constantly putting alcohol in my body, if I would be able to be that in touch with like how I feel and who I am. Um, and I've diagnosed some health issues with myself probably over the past 15 years. And so I really feel like if anything is weird or out of place, I can feel it if something is not right. Like when I had, like when the person was trying to make me drunk, um, I felt that right away. So I just feel like I'm very grounded and in touch with who I am and with my body, my physical body.
Sounds like you're very in tune with your constitution,
Okay. I don't think
meaning
I've heard
like
that phrase before.
uh so people that have a sensitive constitution,
Okay.
right, will know immediately when they're starting to get a cold.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like you, right? Like they start feeling altered, they can sense it right away.
I get migraines as it is, and when I have a really bad one, the next day I wake up and I said, I don't know what a hangover feels like, but if this is it, then why would you choose this? Because you have that sort of residual pain, and it's just awful. And yeah, I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to bring that on myself voluntarily. I try to avoid it as much as I can.
The first time I got the flu after dumping the drink for good, I was like, this is awful. This feels like a hangover
Okay,
minus the headache. And I was
right?
like, I can't believe I used to choose to do this to myself.
Yeah,
Like, no, I
yeah,
just want this to be over.
yeah, yeah. That's how I feel when I get migraines. Um, yeah, I get the vestibular ones with
Oh,
the, yeah. And that's, I have to wear earplugs at concerts because if I the next day I'll get a migraine if I don't.
yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine wanting to do that. But I don't think that's what people are thinking of when they do it.
No, no, I agree. How has being undrunken affected friends? We talked about this a little bit.
Um, well, like I said again, when I was younger, um, most of my social circle did not do that. There was one person who was I thought was a really good friend who would go out and do things with different people and choose to drink to excess, and then I would hear about it later, and I didn't want to be part of that, but it was sad for me that person would do that. Like, I don't speak to them anymore, but behind my back. But
Mm,
now it's funny because I'm finding more people don't drink
mhm.
at this age. And I don't know if it's the age or if it's the times or I don't know, but I'm finding that I'm connecting with people in different groups on Facebook and they're saying, okay, well, I'm a sober person or whatever. Oh, great. That's great. Um, because I don't know, I don't go out a lot. I don't um find myself in a restaurant with a bunch of people kind of, like socially doing that sort of thing. So when I do, it's a pretty small group of people. They always say a lot of people say on your show, quality and not quantity, right?
Mhm.
I've never felt like I've needed a big group of friends. I've never had a big group of friends.
I definitely was surprised when I first started the podcast how many people actually knew that didn't drink,
Wow.
because I just kind of assumed that everybody
Right.
did. And there was a few that really surprised me. I was like, "You don't drink? Oh my gosh, we got to hang out more."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
for
that
sure.
and that, that must be kind of a relief.
Hmm. Yeah. I know, and I've talked about this on different episodes. I took a lot of breaks. I think I was always kind of testing myself more than anything, 6 months, 3 months, a year. And it definitely is different being older. In my 20s, like when I would do stuff like that, like you had shared, right? People were trying to get me drunk without me knowing it.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm not new.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that was when I was out at the clubs or something, that's where it mostly happened. It did not happen with friends. It would be some random guy coming up going, "Hey, I'll buy a drink." Well, I don't want that, I'll get you drunk. Ah, ha, ha. Well, people closer to me have tried than you and they've all failed. So good luck with that.
people
Um,
I like have tried.
yeah, well, like I said, this person that at my wedding, surprised me, but and really disappointed me. Um, because I had known that person a really long time, almost, my whole life. And by the time I got married when I was 30, so it's not like this was a new
Yeah.
thing. And I don't understand what the purpose was. Like, I don't, why would that be funny to you at this event that's supposed to be such an important, special event in my life? Why would that be when it's never happened before? Why would that be funny?
Well, and why, right? I think Andy and I talked about this. Like, why do you need to see me drunk? Like,
Yeah.
this is me.
Yeah.
You want to see me let loose? Like, I
Right.
do that on the daily.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's it. I still am unpacking that one. Like, why do people want to see people drunk?
Yeah. Because I don't think it would be funny that was the answer that was given, but why? Why? Do you want to see me embarrass myself at my wedding? Do you want to see me hurt myself? What do you expect is going to happen? Because I don't even know what would happen. And
Yeah.
I never wanted to know. That's part of what, I was part of all that when I was a kid, the dare there was one
Hmm.
in high school called Partners in Prevention where we went to this little camp for the weekend and talked about strategies. And I mean, all that was just something you do with your friends, I guess, part of something I was involved in, but it didn't, I don't know how much it influenced me and how much of it was just me.
Yeah.
How much is just the way because I don't think if you go to a weekend like that and you want to drink, I don't think that weekend is going to stop you. I don't think dare is going to stop you. The education, I don't know that it's going to stop you when you're sixth, seventh, eighth grade, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but
Are those programs still around? You have a son.
I do, and I have not heard anything where we are, and we're not that far from where you are, I don't think. But I haven't, it's not something that I've seen come home in any of the communication. They do have in their advisory and homeroom classes, they do talk about substance abuse. In his health class, there's a unit on that. But it's not the same like little clubs like we had,
Yeah.
like I had, years and years ago. But yeah, they do discuss it. They went through a whole, and it's just a non-issue for him. He learns about it, but it's not, you know,
Yeah.
I'm never going to do that. So, it's a non-issue for him.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, but it's just taught a little differently now. I know when he was in middle school, they did a different topic every month. They did like suicide prevention and how to tell if someone is struggling, one of your friends or a family member, mental health, substance abuse, all those different things. They just present it in a little different way, I think.
Mm, very interesting. We have one more spoke in our wheel.
Sure.
I told you I love a squirrel.
Sorry.
So no, I was like, I'm gonna go right there with you. How has being undrunken affected self? You've really spoken to this, but
I never really thought a whole lot about that. It's just been me, who I am, how I feel. I've never set out like when I was, 13 years old, I'm never going to be drunk. I never set out for that. I knew I wasn't going to do anything before it was legal because I'm a rule follower. But it's just something that I tried a couple times, didn't really like, kind of continued it socially through my mid 30s, just off and on, not even a lot, like maybe once or twice a year going to a fancy dinner. And then kind of wound up here and said, wow, this is what I want to be. I'm doing what I want to do. So I never really thought more about it. And honestly, until I started listening to the podcast and I heard Andy's episode, and when he said he was wired that way, that just really, really hit me. And I thought, okay, well, that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. So I really appreciate that you chose to include him, because I think that people who never drink or just never did, the born undrunken people, were not kind of looked at the same way as people who have tried it and have just made the choice to stop or just not to drink anymore or dump it.
Yeah. I got nothing after that. That was great. Jen, if somebody wanted to connect with you and really, if nothing else, just wanted to say thank you and really resonated with this conversation, how could they reach out to you? How could they find you?
I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram, but I don't honestly know what my handle on Instagram is.
That's okay. I will link to it in the show notes for sure. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation and share your perspective. And I hope that it resonates with somebody as deeply as
I really do. I hope that I said some things that someone can relate to, or, because after hearing all these different episodes of yours, and you're interviewing people that wrote books and that are into plant medicine and all these different things, and I'm just me. I don't have any special story other than the journey that I've been on for the last 50 years. So,
well, thank you for sharing that story. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to sharing more with you as we continue to explore being undrunken together with friends. I hope the Undrunken Podcast is helpful and inspiring to all of you out there. So if you liked this episode, please send it to a friend and help share these stories with more people.